Well, hello, everybody. Good morning, afternoon, evening, nighttime, wherever you may be. I suppose you have to be somewhere in our lovely world, but thanks for joining us live here today for the one and only Serverless Office Hours. We're streaming on the AWS Twitch channel and also on AWS Events channel on YouTube. So thanks for joining us. We are in proper hackathon mode at the moment.
Yeah, we are.
We're going to be diving all deep into that. But let me just introduce my awesome co-hosts. Eric, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm slightly getting to the panic stage of a lot of work stuff going on, but there's cool hackathon stuff to go on as well.
That's right, because it's hackathon, and of course,
Exactly.
reInvent is right around the corner. So there you go. Did you know that, Gunnar?
I did know that. I'm kind of in the same mood. It feels like every week is reInvent week at the moment.
I know. So the rest of the year is coming far too quickly. So
yeah.
All the internal machinations of AWS shows you we do prepare for things that happen later on in the year. But all the things are going on. Gunnar is one of our judges for the hackathon. Gunnar, how's your week been? And what have you been thinking about the hackathon so far?
So first off, it's been a good week. I'm thrilled to see that we have that many people signing up to join the hackathon. I'm sure we'll get to that in a bit, but I'm definitely very curious to see and hear what people are thinking that they want to build with the hackathon. So very excited for it.
Awesome. We've got plenty of people already putting things in the chat, but why don't we just do a quick recap of what the hackathon is all about? So we are actually talking about the AWS Lambda Hackathon. This isn't just serverless, but this is particularly AWS Lambda. So we're going to be doing some cool things with that. So it is all about earning some prizes and actually turning your serverless dreams into reality and competing for $15,000 in cash prizes. Eric, do you want to take us through the prizes? I think this is coming out of your salary, I heard.
It is, yeah. So I volunteered my salary. This is 3 years of pay for me. So,
you guys are getting paid.
Yeah. We do this because we love this, Gunnar. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So, So the prizes are $6,000 for first prize. It's a pretty big first prize. Super excited about that. $4,000 for second prize, $3,000 for third prize, and $500 for 4 honorable mentions. So a total of $15,000 that we're doing in first prizes. And I know we're going to get to them, but do you see we already have questions coming in? I love it. We've got questions coming in like, how do I do this and that? And do me a favor, if you're watching, post where you're watching from. We'd love to see where people are coming in. We've got Daniel. Call out to Daniel. He's one of us. He's an AWS or Amazonian. Super awesome. He's coming from Brazil. We've got some others piping in. So
Eerie Edits, thanks for joining us via Twitch.
Eerie Edits, yeah. So I love that handle. So tell us where you're coming from.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see people coming back. So we really appreciate it. In Learn AI Now, we know you've got lots of questions, and that is great to see from San Luis. Learn AI Now. You're going to teach us AI Now as well. Peter Smith, who's a friend of AWS from not even further down under. I don't know what's happened since he's left AWS, but also
he's obviously lost his moral compass.
Can the judges be bribed? I have no idea. I mean, I think you've got to try these things. And is this bias for action or what's going on? So
I think, that's one of the things you try first and then you get the answer, basically.
Yeah.
Dr. Pepper.
If it is a serverless application that you build to do judge bribing, then you wonder how that'll be judged. But yeah, we've got Eerie Edits to you from LA. Excellent. Be safe in LA with all things going on at the moment. We've got Kartik Naidu from India. Love it as well. We've got CDS Goat from some place called LOL. Not quite sure where that is. Obviously, I'm
small town.
Silly. And then Harsha also from India. Excellent. So we've got some India in the house. So we did talk about the prizes. But yeah, some people who may not have joined us for last week, and remember, all Serverless Office Hours episodes are on the AWS Twitch, on the AWS YouTube channel, on AWS Events channel. That's what it is. So you can actually catch up with last week's, where we actually chatted to lots of the judges and we went through all the kind of things that we're talking about. But just as a sort of quick overview, in case you are joining us, there's plenty of time to do the hackathon. More the merrier. Your mission is to build an application using Lambda that solves a real world business problems. So I don't know if we're discounting cryptocurrency mining, or maybe that is a real world business problem, but yeah, you've got to be creative and got to do something that is useful. You need to implement at least one Lambda trigger. If you're not sure what a Lambda trigger is, it is something that kicks off a Lambda function to run. It can be synchronously, it can be asynchronously, it can pull something from somewhere, it can be AI, it could be a queue, it could be a database, it could be anything. And of course, you're free to integrate with other AWS services. S3 is an IDEA for object storage, DynamoDB for a NoSQL data store, Amazon Bedrock for AI. In fact, if you want to get really cool and you're thinking NoSQL is not for me, Amazon DRaw SQL is the new SQL global hotness. Just come out of GA, even has CloudFormation support now, so that'll make your life much easier, particularly what we're talking about in this live stream here today. So yeah, plenty of options of what you can do.
So I'm going to interrupt you real quick because we've gotten a lot of questions about the AWS. Do we use this needs to be primary, obviously AWS services. We've got some people's like, well, I have one Lambda and everything else is elsewhere. Now it needs to be on AWS. If you make a call out to some other services, that's fine. But it is primarily AWS. This is a question we've gotten a lot, so I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Where did we... if I could live stream, that would be useful. Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, the greatest reward in Hackathon is the hands-on experience and helping each other. And that's also the cool thing. We've got a Slack channel that people are joining. We've got office hours coming for the next 3 weeks. So we know some things, but you probably know in aggregate way more than we do. So it'll be useful for you to help each other out. So what does your submission need? A public code repo, we're thinking GitHub, but I suppose can be anywhere. A README showing how it works because the judges are going to have a go and deploy it as well. And then a 3-minute demo video seeing it in action. Now, you don't need to go crazy with this video, but please do if you want to go crazy. But yeah, that's intimidating. Just a video you talking through how it's going to work. But if you want to add fireworks and emojis, fill your boots. We love it. So we did talk quickly about the judging.
What?
Fill your boots. Does that not make sense? In
funny boots?
Fill your boots means
fill it.
Go for it.
Yeah, I don't think that does. Gunnar, did you get that?
No, I think that's British.
I don't think it is. I think it's a Julian Wood thing.
Oh, you think?
You can't blame the British for Julian.
No, you can't blame. See, I'm not entirely British here. I'm slowly absorbing.
Oh, yeah, it could be.
That's right.
Maybe it's a South African one.
Maybe
it's the South African British. They're a rare breed.
So. I'm sure that's English. So someone will correct us in the chat with the fill your boots. Wow. These things that you think is ubiquitous and they're not. But anyway. So go for it is actually the short-term thing for that. So yeah, quality and creativity of your idea. Good. Over to you if you want to what does quality and creativity of your idea mean to you as a judge?
Well, I think it's about doing the unexpected in this case. We want creative ideas. So people who think outside the box, because everyone can do a synchronous API or something that stores an image in S3 or whatever it might be. But we want people to think about the things we haven't seen so far. So being creative, but then also doing it with quality in mind. We want to make sure that this is something that works. We talked about it last time that when we as judges look at this solution, well, we're going to try to install it. We're going to try to run it. So make sure that things work and that the README is up to date and that it tells us how to actually run your solution.
Cool. Awesome. And including, some serverless architecture and serverless best practices. We want to put some things together that actually work and do things well. These are all going to work in conjunction with each other to come up with a cool sort of winning solution. And obviously, completeness of your solution generally helps. If it works and does something good and is complete, that's obviously going to be of this super benefit to you. So what else we got? The start date was last week, but don't worry, you're not too late. So submissions between the 3rd and the 30th of June. So you've got this whole month to basically slack off the rest of your work and do way more of Lambda Hackathon, because that's going to be super useful.
Here's a piece of info. I'm going to throw this out. Did you know we already have over 1,000 participants in the hackathon?
1,000.
We've got over 1,000 people participating in this. So competition steep, but some really cool things should come out of this. And what's really interesting, and just so you know, we got someone saying scary, but in Slack channel, so CDS Goat, we know she's been answering questions in the Slack channel. The Slack channel, I thought it would be so. If you're not familiar, if you've registered for this, you need to join the Slack channel. It's on the AWS developers, and then you join the Slack channel, and then there's a Slack channel called Hackathon 2025, and so there's been a lot, and I thought we would be answering all the questions, but the participants have been answering each other. It's been super cool. Like what we have participants that are they're posting their daily status. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I built. Yeah. And other participants will come in and say, well, I would do this or change that. So it's an amazing amount of knowledge that's happening in the table. So it's not just brand new developers. It's both. It's people who have never touched serverless before. It's people who have been building it for a long time. And so and that makes it really interesting because, like Gunnar was saying, we're looking for unique. We're looking for something solving real world problems, those kinds of things. And so a lot of different angles coming in. So it's been fun to watch.
No, super cool. Yeah, I think it's power of the community, really. And that's what we really want to see. And I think what you touched upon is important. Those people who perhaps haven't worked with serverless and with Lambda for years, I think they might approach this differently. And might be able to be creative in ways that, well, many of us have used Lambda since it was launched, basically. So we have our way of using it.
I do mine the same way every time. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good call out.
Cool, definitely. And yeah, CDS goes there. The Slack channel has been awesome. I definitely recommend joining. You might even get a few ideas, which is great. So Slack is a sort of great communication thing. This is the site s12v.com/hack-lambda. So that is really what we need to talk. I'm really excited for the hackathon. I do need to. That's always the thing. I speak I get way too excited. There's way too much to talk about. Anyway, I will try and slow down.
No, you're fine.
Daniel's fluent in Portuguese, so Daniel's probably simultaneously translating into 3 languages at the same time, knowing how clever Daniel is. So
into blogs,
definitely, definitely. Cool. So where do we start? I think maybe should we do some questions, and then Eric's also got some cool stuff to go through as well to help you on your way. So we're going to be sort of tackling infrastructure as code this week. So Eric's going to give you some pointers and some tips and tricks, and Eric is the guru of infrastructure as code. But maybe, we'll do a few questions. We'll do the start questions now, and then as questions come in, we'll see how we go and do it. So should we pick Learn AI Now's question, who is has got a blog post written in comments, but we'll go for it. So and also please if you are on the chat, please reply as well. We'd love to get your feedback over here. We know some things, but we certainly don't know a lot of things. So Learn AI says, my project has me loading a document on the front end using React. Once that happens, it goes to an S3 bucket, and then a Lambda function is fired off to have it to do textract. So if you're not sure, textract, as the name sort of says, is an AWS service that extracts the text from a document. Once that is done, it comes back and goes to a PostgreSQL database, which is then chunked out. So here's the question. I want to build a RAG in Bedrock to scan that DB and use the data I've trained it with either through documents API calls, and then return the results to that PostgreSQL database off of the instructions. Okay, I'm going to have to read that again in my brain because I'm talking too faster than my own brain works. I want to build a RAG in Bedrock, scan that database. So is that the database then with the textracted info? That's what I'm understanding. And using the data I've trained it with. And using the data that is an LLM model, I think. And return the results. Okay, well, let's go through the rest instructions, see how we go. So I gave it, or maybe have it so it can be displayed on the front end. Am I doing these steps correct? Is there a better way? I want to try and stay away from VectorDB if I can. Right now, my PostgreSQL is on Supabase. It's using ed functions, but after this hackathon is done, I will make it. I will migrate it to RDS PostgreSQL.
Okay.
So has anybody replied in the comments just to? Okay, well, you have CDS Goat already saying Vector would be better, and I don't know if Supabase is supported. So that is a start. But Eric, do you just want to take initially some of your thoughts of how to approach this kind of architecture? It doesn't necessarily have to be the same one, but see how we go.
Yeah. So I think CDK Goat or CD, what is it, CDS Goat is correct. You probably I know you don't want to do a vector, and you can literally say, okay, do a search against that. You can have your RAG function. I mean, you kind of write this. You can say, okay, I'm going to query the database and have all that data returned as a RAG, but using the vector is kind of what the magic of that matching is, right? So it's going to be, but again, you can do that. So you could literally just kind of write this where you say, okay, when I call the Lambda function, now query the database, grab all the things that respond to this data, right? So how do I, what's, I don't know. I can't think of anything clever at the moment. I really wish I could. But what is that? And it gets all the data back, and then you inject that into the prompt. But a lot of these databases, or a lot of the vector databases, especially the ones like on Bedrock and things like that, they have the ability to parse down that information. Because what you run the risk of is overrunning your prompt, right? Just having too many tokens of the prompt, and you start getting too big for that. So by using the vector databases, you can use some of the stuff that's built in to reduce that. OpenSearch has a vector database in it. You can use the vector database straight in Bedrock, which also taps into OpenSearch. You can run your own Pinecone if you want. If you need to index data, Kendra is a service to look at. Kendra has a really powerful indexing engine that can do, hit Redshift. It can how you doing? Scrape websites. It can do all kinds of different things. And so that's another option. But I probably would look at using a knowledge base, and I don't know if either one of you. I'm sorry, a vector database for knowledge base. And Gunnar,
well, funnily, what you said. Isn't AWS, doesn't Bedrock have a built-in knowledge base functionality as well, where I think you can just you could just upload the file. In fact, you can point it to the S3 bucket where people are uploading files, or upload your own data, and then Bedrock.
It has some indexing skills as well. Yeah, so you can point, not quite as many as Kendra, but if all your data is in S3, and they're writing more, but yeah, it can point to those. And that's kind of the best way to do it, because you can say, here's my data, and it's going to be updating on a periodic data. You update the vector as you can, So generally S3 is where I go if I'm going to use the knowledge base in Bedrock. But Gunnar, it looked like you had something to say.
Yeah, no. So yeah, using knowledge bases in Bedrock, I think that's a great idea, because that's the fully managed way of doing it, basically, with Bedrock. But you still would need to use a vector database behind the scenes. So that could be OpenSearch, for instance. So I think when building these types of solutions, it's a matter of also looking at the cost of building it and running it as well. Because if you're running something that it has a monthly cost, or a cost associated with a way that isn't serverless, like maybe the rest of the solution, make sure to have that in mind as well while you're architecting your solution.
And I think, as Ronaldo Tavares da Silva says, thanks for joining us via YouTube. Now, Kendra is the RAG precursor. That is partly true. Kendra's also going to do semantic search for other kind of things, but Kendra's also going to be great, but it's going to be quite big for this if you're doing a hackathon thing. There's a cost element to this. Kendra's the kind of thing, if you are running a company, you've got a whole bunch of stuff in there and you're going to be using it all the time and you're going to be doing all that search, then Kendra's a good solution.
If you do use Kendra, use the community edition. There's the enterprise, and to be honest, that's not cheap. And now it's super powerful, but you want to look at the community edition to do this, to limit this. But it is the RAG precursor. It kind of does the work for you. I built a chat bot called Ask Serverless Land, and it literally points at serverless land and indexes all of serverless land, and then it creates a RAG, and then I can just ask the point. Then I can ask the question. I have all that RAG data. So yeah, cool.
Carry on.
No, I was just going to say that I think part of the question was also talking about moving to RDS and PostgreSQL, which obviously is a good option. I think is it PG Vector you can use on PostgreSQL to get that vector functionality as well.
But also, Luna, and I think what you needing to build, because it sounds as though you're putting a lot of thought and effort into the vector database. If you are going to go the knowledge base route, that is your vector database. In fact, you don't need in fact, you're not using a vector, or you don't need a vector database. That's sort of behind the scenes and sorted for you as just part of Bedrock. So maybe you can pull out this whole idea of not even needing to do anything vector yourself, use the knowledge bases, and then use your Postgres SQL to store the other parts of your application.
Well, I would go a step further on that, and we don't know your application, so there may be a part you're like, no, Eric, you don't understand. That's fine. But if what you're doing is collecting, if I did see maybe you're querying some data, but if the model or the agent is going to query the data, S3, there's a good chance S3 will be your best and most inexpensive approach. So rather than running SQL database somewhere, just drop this as a document or CSV, so however you want to do, into S3 and let the knowledge base index on that. And then your agent has all that data. And again, that's not, I mean, you may say, hey, well, there's some other queries that I need to happen, and that's fine. But keep that in mind. In our way of thinking, we think, well, you got to have a database. But if all we're doing is collecting database for an agent to work against, there's a good chance you don't have to have a database other than the vector that's happening under the hood in one of the knowledge-based solutions.
Yeah, and the second part of the question is also, the sort of synchronous versus asynchronous part of this, where you are taking something, uploading it to S3, you've got a front end on your React component. How do you know when your text extract's done? How do you know when your async or your Bedrock knowledge base or your PG vector or your whatever you're doing is actually done? So I know, Eric, you've done some of this before about sync and async. What tips and tricks would you have?
So I'm sorry, how do you know when what's done? I lost a little part of
that. Sync versus async, because there's updates to the front end, and you've got now this background text extract happening. Maybe you're doing a knowledge base or a RAG or whatever, this kind of thing in the back end. How do you get your front end?
So when you're using some of the machine learning tools, or really in our services, there's some options. When you have big jobs like text extract, may or may not be big, and you might be able to do that synchronous and get the data back as a JSON. But let's say you need to do some image evaluation or video processing. So the same thing applies. You have the ability to send to the service. You say, hey, I want you to do this job, and I want you and I want you to, when you're done, either drop the file in an S3 bucket. So that, let's say you're actually changing, manipulating a file, or send out a notice. So like text extract, I believe you can actually have it send it to a topic. So you can say, when you're done, send to a topic, and I can then invoke or catch through EventBridge, or there's a lot of different ways, but I can then subscribe to that topic and say, okay, that job is done. Was it success? How you doing? Successful? Then move on. Was it not? So yeah, we build into the services, and there's different ways. One, subscribe to a topic, drop it in a bucket, but all to say some type of event is sent out, and now you're doing event-driven architecture, and then you're continuing the work. So yeah, asynchronous is the way to go. I have done a lot of work around this, and we think synchronously a lot of times. Actually, we don't. We think asynchronously. You go, oh, is that done? Or something like that. But when we code, we tend to think, well, I got to do this. Wait. Then I got to do this. Wait. And that's not the most efficient way, right? Werner Vogels does several years ago talked about that in his keynote, but the world is asynchronous. And so the better we learn to code that way, the more efficient and more resilient our applications will be.
Yeah. And yeah, just seeing you are talking front end as well, getting notifications back to the front end. There are plenty of options, but if you don't know, look at the new AppSync Events API, and you think, AppSync, that's all GraphQL. What do you want about? Well, the AppSync Events API isn't GraphQL. It's actually just WebSockets under the hood. So this is actually quite an efficient way, and only a very few lines of code. You can also subscribe to these AppSync event notifications, a few lines of code, and you send an event to AppSync. AppSync is then going to send it through onto your front end application. So that's quite a good part of it. Another thing to think of as well, and in fact we have Sally who is listening to as well. There we go. I mean, Sally's actually the front end guru, so we just pretend what we're talking about.
He should be on here answering.
If you're working with especially web, you can think async can only show related information when it's loaded. The web loves being modular, but obviously mobile does not like as much. And so Sally's also done a huge amount of work with AWS Amplify. If you are doing front-end kind of stuff, that's got a lot of hooks into AWS in the back end. In fact, I was in Stockholm last week, and Sally did an awesome demo, and I spoke about this using the Amplify AI kit. So this was literally a few lines of code for AI functionality in your app. So if you are still wondering for some of the ideas and you want to do some front end, some AI back end, the AWS Amplify AI kit is a useful thing to look at.
So John asked a question, and this could just open a whole, but what is it, barrel of monkeys, however you want to say it, ball of wax. But I'm gonna throw this at you, Gunnar, if you want to. So what are your thoughts on running snippets of untrusted customer code or AI generated code within a Lambda function? I'm throwing it at Gunnar because I don't want to answer. No, I'm just kidding. I don't mind. But it's an interesting discussion. It does open a whole.
I think we've all done that, right? Yeah. Once or twice, taking a code snippet that we found somewhere and then use that to just get something done. And obviously, that's not best practice. That's not what we should do. We should definitely make sure that we know what the piece of code we're running is, what it's doing, and how it's actually meant to work. And I think now with using AI assistants like QDeveloper, for instance, I think that's becoming even more important. And there are a few things that I tend to use to help me make sure that what I'm running is as secure as possible. One is obviously just reading the code, making sure to actually review what is being generated before I start using it. But the other is in QDeveloper, for instance, there is a functionality, one of the agents. So we have a bunch of agents in QDeveloper, the dev agent, the test agent, the doc agent. But one of them is called review. I use that quite a lot because you can then run a full review of your code and it will then check against known vulnerabilities. It will then use a bunch of these knowledge that is within the LLM as well to then check your code to see if it is secure. And then you get a list of findings and you can go through those. And that's everything from just the code snippets to the libraries you're using. I'm a huge JavaScript, Node.js guy. So I always use 10 million libraries, everything I build, because that's just the way it works. You install one thing and all of them have 40 dependencies as well. So in the end, you have so many dependencies. So it will check all of those for you as well, and then tell you if you need to update, if there is vulnerabilities and so on.
Yeah. And I mean,
so I'm gonna throw up here.
That's pretty much Max Day, who is one of the absolute gurus. In fact, he's one of the developers who builds Lambda. So Max, thanks so much for joining us. The thing is, I think Lambda is a great place to run untrusted customer code or AI-generated code within your Lambda function. Why? Because it runs in a secure, isolated execution environment. So if you restrict what that can do and access, it's a great place, because what happens? A Lambda function runs, you inject the code, the Lambda function runs. When it's finished, it just goes away. So isn't that the most secure thing, that it just gets thrown away? So yes, you don't want to have your Lambda function having access to all of your company databases and then inject AI-generated code into that Lambda function. That wouldn't be a good idea. But I think actually Lambda is uniquely suited for this kind of challenge. And in fact, I will drop a link very shortly. There's one of our other awesome, clever colleagues, Danilo, has created a Lambda function which is perfect for running just this. It is actually written in, it's a Python Lambda function, but I mean, somebody could easily do it for Node. And basically your AI agent injects random code that it generated into this function. The function spins up, it installs the dependencies as part of the init. Yeah, it's going to be slow, but you don't really mind. Installs the dependencies for the Python Lambda function, runs your untrusted code, and gives you the result. And if it fails, what's your LLM going to do? Going, oh, I failed. Let me try again. Upload some code, run the function, install, and run this code. And you can have this basically generic shell of a Lambda function that can run any Python code the AI does it. And when it does it, finish it. It does a bit of a cleanup. It deletes temp. And I'm not sure even if it does anything with memory, but sort of cleans itself out when it's gone. And so that is wickedly cool, because you can literally get your AI to generate any kind of code, and it's going to run it securely. It doesn't have access to anything in your AWS account. It could just access the internet to load stuff from the web. So yeah, Lambda could be super useful for doing this kind of thing.
So we have another question coming in. Yes, is when we load our. This is a good question. When we load our not that you need my credit. This is a good question. Well done. So when we load our project to GitHub, we are required to load our entire website, or are we required to load our website code with the Lambda code, or just share the Lambda code with the README on how the site will work? So we need to be able to run it. And if that means if it's a REST API and I have to curl it, that's fine. I don't mind curling it. But if I have to have the front end to run it, then yeah, you need to upload it. So most of the time, and I won't speak for these two, but most of what I build is back end. Nobody wants me building a front end. That's what Solly's good at. That's what Eric Hanchett, and stuff. But I'm really bad. And so my client is usually an HTTP file using the HTTP plugin in code. And so I could just test that or test suite. I'll just run tests against it. I rarely build a front end. So as you're building it out, if you're running a REST API or you have an API we can invoke or something like that, that's fine. That's what we're looking to test, is that application that's running on the back end. So
cool.
I think maybe from a judging perspective, I think since we want to see a complete solution, so yeah, curling something is fine, but if you can make that easier for us, I think that's even better, to be honest.
Yeah, agreed.
And there could be options. There could be options to also have a hosted website. You could host the website and then have something connect to it as well. I don't know, just throwing some things out there. Eric, I know we wanted to talk about infrastructure as code, but the questions are flying today. They are. I'm wondering how we. That's that's.
So let's answer this last one, and then I'll pop in and I'll jump ahead a little bit, but I'll pop in and show some stuff. But we do have this question. It says recently started working on a React app and using Amplify with Cognito for authentication. What are my options for restricting data to specific users to specific data in DynamoDB? Cool thing about DynamoDB is you can actually get row level security. So you can say, hey, only return. So it can be something as simple as you have so I'm going to put the user's Cognito ID in there and say, okay, when I do the return, and here's the cool thing. So when your user logs in, you've got this token, right? And so the token is going to have some information, specifically an ID of the user. So then I can take that user and use it as a query against the database. And I think Amplify actually helps you do a lot of this. I'm not an Amplify expert. Eric Hanchett, we'll have to get him on next week. He's really good at this stuff. But basically, you just make a call to DynamoDB and say, give me all. You design your DynamoDB so that ID can be like either a GSI or like a global secondary index or your primary index. And so you can do a query, and that's obviously better than a scan. So you say query all of Eric Johnson's by his ID and maybe a time stamp to order him, whatever, and that'll give you that security. There's also a way, and Gunnar or Julian, maybe you can say on this. I've never actually done it, but my understanding is there's a way to do it through IAM as well. And maybe I'm wrong, but there's a way to limit it down to just those records through conditional
access. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Okay. That's probably the better way.
Yeah, no, you can definitely use conditions in IAM in a policy to be able to restrict it that way. It's not an uncommon approach when dealing with multi-tenancy, for instance, to use that approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll put a link in the chat. It's the documentation is called Using IAM Policy Conditions for Fine-Grained Access Control, and that is literally row by row permissionings, and it's just using attributes, and you can send sort of have any attributes on your table, and that attribute could be your Cognito user. It could be an email address, could be anything. But I will pop that link into the chat because that is useful.
Yep. Something unique, yeah. And taking advantage, and this we're getting into DynamoDB setup, but taking advantage of DynamoDB structuring. If I use my user ID as the ID, and I use like a time as the hash, so you have a key and a hash, or primary key and a hash, right? Or a range. People use different terms, but you're able to then say on a quick query, you're able to say, give me all of Gunnar's entrances in the database, rather than and then you can use just the ID to grab just one at a time. This is the magic behind DynamoDB. It's why it's so fast, is it uses those hashes, it uses that memory allocation and identification. So good way to do that. So okay. All right, so we ready to show a little of this?
Yeah, let's see some code.
Okay, so the idea behind this is to show if you're new to serverless, there may be some of you out there like, I do this all the time. I'm a CDK, I'm a Terraform, I'm a whatever, and that's great. I'm a same guy. I believe Gunnar, you are as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so I use SAM. So Gunnar probably correct me on some of the ways I do this, and that's fine. We'll hash it out later. But I expect you to sound off if you have other ways of doing things. But basically, I'm going to show you some very simple ways to get started building with serverless, and then maybe some of the tools you can use in SAM that'll help you develop faster. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to just start with the SAM init. And the SAM init is literally, we're initializing a SAM application, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and actually let me, we'll go SAM init. And so it's going to ask me some questions. It's going to say, okay, how do you want to do this? I always start with a quick start template, right? So it's just, hey, here's what I'm going to build. And I tend to start with the hello world, but you have all these different examples of best practices for some different things. But I start with the hello world because I just want a raw structure real quick. I am going to use Python. I know Gunnar would not use that, but I'm okay with that.
This is your first error.
I'm going to add X-ray. X-ray is a great way to see how things are happening across. And generally, I'll add structure. I'm not going to at the moment, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But my CloudWatch monitor. Okay, so we'll just do this. So now it's just going to say, okay, so we'll call this. I think I have one already out there, so we'll call this Live 2. Okay, so now it's going to create the app. So I'm done. So then I'm going to go into the actual, let's go into CD Live 2 here, and then I'm going to open, and I'm going to just use straight up Visual Studio Code. So I've opened it. You can't see it. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share and change over to that. So give me a second here. Share screen, window.
Besides using Python, I'd say I do exactly the same. I usually start off SAM init. Use one of the examples to start off, no matter what I'm building, more or less.
And in fact, there's also a cheat in Visual Studio where you can actually just start directly from Visual Studio without even doing the SAM in it. So
that's exactly right. Yeah. So one thing. Sorry, I'm just organizing some windows here so I can see stuff. So yeah, and I will use TypeScript part of the time. The problem with me is I spend so much time wrestling with the types that I never get to the code I want to make. So that's where it's like, I wish I were, I'm an architect, not a developer, but yeah. So, okay. So let's take a look and see what's created. So here, this is just a bare bones.
Maybe zoom a step or 5.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Can you zoom in a bit, Eric?
Yeah. You got it. Yeah.
I'm old.
How's that? Is that better? Oh my gosh.
Maybe one more.
Really? Oh,
for everyone on
Should we just say 5 more and Eric's going to have 3 characters on his screen?
I'm literally going to step back. So read, it's like skywriting. So anyway, okay. So you get this idea. So here's a SAM template. So all we've got is this, here's a description. We've got some globals that we're setting. And then we're setting hello world function. So this actually describes a Lambda function. It basically says, here's the function. It's the logical name. Here's what it is, the serverless function. Where's it located? Under hello world, there's actually a folder. You can see it up here. And then what am I going to invoke? So as we talked about event-driven architectures, Sam, who loves YAML? That's right, Gunnar. I appreciate that. This is going to say what file. App is the file. So if you look under my hello world folder here, you can see my app here. And then it'll say, and what application? Well, or I'm sorry, what function? The Lambda handler. Right. And so that's the event. So when this comes in, hello, it's not switching out. There we go. So when this comes in, it tells it where to invoke. So then we do some architectures. Now I like to actually change this up. I like to use ARM instead of x86 because this saves you a little money and is a little more performant. And then the next thing that's happening is I'm actually creating an event. Or I'm assigning an event to this, and I'm saying it's going to be, this is just a logical name for hello world. What is it? It's an API. And then I'm going to say, here's the properties. You look under hello, and it's a get method. And that's it. So, and then we've got some outputs coming out here, and I'll actually clean these up a little bit because it drives me nuts sometimes to have too much comments and stuff in here. But what this is going to output is the actual API. So SAM knows that because I've attached an API, we're going to create actually a full API gateway instance, right? So what we're going to do, and while I'm going to talk about this, I should have done this already, but let's go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and deploy this once. So we have everything we need. Let me set my credentials here. Okay. I use a plugin in all my ZSH because I go to a lot of different accounts and it never fails. I deploy to the wrong account. So that does happen. So
I thought you were using ASP.NET. I was just like, what?
I'm
that is
cool. ASP is the
ASP.
plugin, demo is the profile name. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build this. Now you may be saying, Eric, I may not be a Python developer, but I know that Python does not need to be built. What we're actually doing is we're getting everything ready to package and send up. So it creates the zip files and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to go ahead and go SAM deploy -G. I only do the -G the first time because this actually tells it, hey, I want to guide it because I want to tell you some things about it. So we're going to say live 2. I'm going to use US 2 for my region. I'm going pretty fast here. Tell me if I'm going too fast. So confirm the changes. No, I don't need to confirm the changes. I never make mistakes. So it's not true. But this is a development account. So allow SAM CLI to create the roles needed. Yes. We're not going to worry about rollback right now. The one thing we ask in here to help you is to say, hey, we recognize the hello world function has no authentication. Are you okay with that? And I have to actually accept that because we do like least privileges here at AWS. So we want to make sure. Do I want to save this information that I've just collected? Yes, I'm going to save it to a TOML file. Little trick here is you can actually change that to YAML. SAM supports either TOML or YAML. I'll just leave it TOML for now, but that's fine. So just so you know, so if I actually put samconfig.yaml, it'll save it as a YAML file. All right, so now it's going to go ahead and deploy this application. Now, while it's deploying, I'll talk you through a couple other things here, and then we're going to see a couple of tips and tricks that I like to do to set up my development environment again to help move fast when we're deploying. Because
can I just mention
we don't want
one thing, Eric?
What's that? Yeah.
Can I just mention one thing that you mentioned very quickly is just that SAM packages everything for you and pushes it up for deployment. And I think that's really one of the key benefits with SAM that many of the other tools aren't as easy with when it comes to actually packaging up the entirety of your project in this case. So both the infrastructure as code, your template, but also all of your Lambda functions. So we'll take all of that, push it to CloudFormation so it will get deployed, or actually push to S3, but then get deployed through CloudFormation. And many of the other ones, no matter if it's CDK or pure CloudFormation and so on, then you have to actually manage that differently when you're deploying your functions as well.
Right. I think that's a great call out because what I did a build, but I just kind of glossed over it. And we made those comments, but the build is actually fetching all the dependencies, right? So it's saying, so I don't have to install the dependencies here. It's going to fetch them and manage them, and it fetches just what's needed. So yeah, great call. So, all right. So if you'll remember, I talked about this is how I test things. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a new file, and I call this test.http. And so I can actually go in here and say, let's do a git here. And this is, we'll just call this the hello world. So if you're not familiar with this plugin, I use this plugin all the time. It's called the, you see other ones that I use, but it's called the REST client. Super helpful. And so you just go in, and once you add the file, let me close this out. Once I add this, you're going to see a send request right here. So I'm going to check the Lambda function. I'm going to go ahead and do a send. And there we go. We got our hello world. So I know this works. This is out in production. We're ready to go. So
that is a cool. I didn't realize. I've never heard of that. That's a cool.
Have you never seen that? Yeah. This is so. I love Postman too, and you can do some really powerful things with Postman. But usually, I just need to check. Hey, did I break it? You know what I mean? And so this is a real quick one. And then you can even get crazy and you can say, and I won't spend too much time on this, but just so you can see this. So I'm going to actually take this and copy it above this maybe. And I'm going to say at URL equals, okay. So now I have a parameter that I can do. And here's where it gets really cool. I can store tokens and secure things outside of this page in a global reference that it will reference, but it doesn't push up or save, so you don't get in trouble for saving that kind of stuff. So now I can just reference this. URL. Here we go. Yeah, so I just referenced that. So same thing. So once I run that, now I can do this, and now I can just start building more and see it still works. So there you go. And so what I generally do is I will just pull this. I kind of set my screen up like this. So now I've got my test and my response, and I've got my template that I'm working on. So, all right, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, this is a cool plugin. All right. So now that we've done that, I'm going to start a couple of things. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start a function called samsync watch. Now, I do want to show my SAM config tomo by doing an init real quick, and let's pull this over here so you can see it nice and big. We've set some things. One, we've set a global parameter of live. Two, we've also said that anytime I'm doing sync, I want you to do watch. And so we've defaulted a lot of these. So I don't have to put the watch, but I'm going to put it just so you can see it. So I'm going to say samsync watch. It knows the name of my stack. And I'm going to turn this on. Now it says, hey, are you sure you want to proceed with this? Now it's going to do one more deploy, right? So it's going to make sure everything's out there and ready to go. So we'll let that go while we're making some changes and kind of going through this really quick. All right, so I'm going to show, here's my app, the Hello World. I'm going to look at my app.py. I'm going to move this over. We're real estate. Normally I'm on a huge curve, and I got it all laid out. So, but we'll make this work. So this Lambda is very simple. All we're doing is literally there's some commented out stuff that I can do here. But what we're doing really is we're just returning this hello world as you saw. So I'm going to let that finish the deploy.
Eric, while you are just there, can you just, that application builder on the bottom left, can you just expand that under the timeline, under the outline, a bit further left, other left?
Hang on a second. All the way to the left.
Further down, further down.
Okay. Oh, down here. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
So,
yep. So I've got,
This is actually an AWS plugin as part of VS Studio Code, which looks at the SAM template, says you have a Lambda function, and it allows you to do like a whole bunch of stuff. You can invoke. So all the typing that Eric is doing of all these commands, all of that is built into that. Just if you.
That's right. Yeah, and that's a great call out. I habitually go to the terminal. I like the terminal. It's what I use. But all this is built in through you can see my plugin. I have the AWS toolkit. This is what's going to give me Q, which we'll see in just a second if we have time. But yeah, that's a great call out. All right, so I'm going to show, I know we're almost out of time, so I'm going to show a couple things really quick. So now I've done this. Now notice it's still sitting there waiting. InfraSync is completed. So now let's go over and test and make sure we're still running. And I'm going to bring this down. And yes, this is bold white. We still got our answer. That works. Now, this is actually calling the API in the cloud. This is deployed. All of you could go to it if you went to this endpoint. Feel free to knock yourself out. This is ready to handle thousands and thousands and thousands of invokes right now. Okay, so I deployed an API in just a couple of minutes. Now, I want to go ahead and say, I'm going to change this to say, hello world. I'm going to say, hello serverless office hours. We'll save that. Now, watch down here. Okay, I'm building and I'm deploying and I'm done. So I've already finished syncing that. So now I'm going to go ahead and test that again. And notice I've got an updated API. So any code changes, and it'll do this for step functions, ASL. It'll do it for cloud, for API gateway, open API, and then Lambda code. So we got the question, what was that plugin that I'm using again? It's literally called the REST client I don't know if there's a share in here, but what I'll do later is I'll go and I'll share this out on Twitter. I have a lot of people that have asked for this and what are you using? So yeah, that's it. All right. So you can see that I quickly changed that. Now, the other thing I want to do, and this is another tool that I'm going to show, is we'll just start a new term. Normally I have these side by side. Actually, let me close that, but we can't fit all that in. So I'm going to start a new one here. And the other, and I say this is one of the least or underrated services because it's so powerful, or underrated features. I'm going to start something called SAM logs. Okay. And I'm just going to do a tail on it. And now you'll notice I'm getting all my logs from my Lambda function, right? So I may come in here. Let's change my Lambda function and let's just real quick, we're going to say, I got to move this over. the window's so big for me. So here I'm going to say print, and we'll print the event. Just there's not much in the event, but we'll print it. And I feel like, oh, hey, that was my bad. So I overwrote some code there. So let's actually, we'll do this. We'll say, I'm going to escape out of this. It's trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Let's say, I'll do a this way, print the event. So I'm using Q to kind of set that up, and Q will pop that in. There you go. It's actually doing, we're going to deny that. So every once in a while, it didn't understand me. Let's just type it out here. So print, escape, and event. So, okay. All right. And, that's why it's confused. This is an Eric problem because I was in the return statement. Hey, neither one of you said anything. Thanks for that. So now we're going to do this. Okay. Now Q is like, no, okay, now I know what you want. Oh, yeah, now that makes sense. So, all right. So let's go ahead and save this. And you'll notice, let's go back to our other terminal. It's already pushed before I can even get out there. So now I'm going to go ahead and let's run the test again. Okay. And you'll notice in the logs, there's the event right there. So there you go. So those are two tools, and we might show more later. Do we have any questions we want to? I know we got a few minutes, and I can show some more. But are there any questions coming in that we want to handle?
Well, yeah, as Alpacode says, nice observability-driven development in action. That was it. Yeah. Sticking the stuff in the right place. I'm just flicking back through to see. Max Day was talking about when we were talking the build. It is build from source. For Python, you don't necessarily have to do a build, but if it does have dependencies and everything, it's just going to automatically build for you. You can also use a container. So I sometimes find that super useful. I don't have to have all the tools installed on my laptop. I can just use sambuild-use container, and all the build tools are in there as well. So that's also super useful as well. There was a question again from Learn AI. Now, if my knowledge, back to our sort of beginning thing, if my knowledge base just accesses all the documents in S3, do I even need AWS TextRact? That is a good question. I don't know what sort of textish format it needs to be in.
Yeah, TextRact is for grabbing text out of images. So if you have images, then you want. So what you want to do? Let's say I got a bucket of images. And it's got all signs and stuff, or you want to look for bad language or something like that. You point you say a step function. You say point it out there. You say every time an image drops in. However you want to do that event, and then TextRact will go through and pull all that text out. Then you drop that as a document into S3. Then your knowledge base can index that and go to town.
It's basically super smart machine learning powered OCR. That's TextRact for you.
That's right. Yeah.
So depending on the format of the documents, you might not need the TextRact for it. Cool. Eric, can you show? I see you're doing something else, but then
I am. But I'll show whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Can't you show one of my favorite services or parts of VS Toolkit or the AWS Toolkit? Show Infrastructure Composer. Show the visual view of your template.
All right. So maybe we'll come back to that. So I can go into my template. So if I go back over here, and we'll just
might need to close a few of them.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to close out my tests and stuff because we'll need some room, and I'll pull this over. Okay. So if I go into any template, I can actually see this. You see this icon up here. It's the same one Julian showed down there. If I hit this, I now have a layout. It's going to take it a second to do it. There's my application in a visual way, right? So let's say I want to add another Lambda function. Well, actually, let's do this. Let's say I want to add another step function, okay? So I can go into step, I can do that, and I can set, I can do whatever I need to. I can change this out. This extension is part this extension is part of the Serverless toolkit. If you've installed the AWS Serverless toolkit, you get this.
Is it the Serverless toolkit or the AWS
the AWS toolkit
AWS toolkit for Visual Studio code which includes all the serverless stuff in it. So it's not a separate extension. That's the word, extension.
That's right. So I'm going to do something in here. So I'm going to hit save state machine here. I'm going to save it. And I've told it I want to use an external file. I want to use an external file for it. So I'm going to save that. Now let's go back and I'm going to close this out. Let's look at our template. So here's your state machine. It added the policies that are needed, tracing. It's added all your machine logs. So like Gunnar, I often start here. I pull some stuff in. But here's another fun thing inside of the toolkit. And you used to have to go through that last tool I just showed you, but now you can go directly. So let me open my files. Here's our state machine. If I open the state machine, looky there. I've got the workflow editor, and I can now edit my state machine inside of Visual Studio Code. And what's really cool, well, you can't see it because there's too much here. So, well, anyway, you get the idea. You can see all the tools that you have action to. You can say, hey, if we wanted to if we wanted to go Bedrock, and we wanted to use the Converse. So what we could say is, hey, through step functions, call the Bedrock Converse, and then we can actually configure it, and we can even test it from here using the test state. All right. I know we're almost out of time, but I'm glad to answer any last-minute questions.
Cool. That was awesome. So just quickly, Lou the Z, thanks for joining us. So you don't necessarily need to write the template in YAML. You could use this composer to set up the template. Exactly. This is literally drag and drop driven development, and this is super useful. Another thing is use Amazon Q, use your GenAI assistant. They are actually, because Sam and YAML, they're actually really good at building all these kind of things. One other thing, and I could have even showed you this, but we ran out of time because Eric's got awesome demos, is there is an AWS Serverless MCP server. So if you don't know what MCP is, it's a sort of plug and play, the USB stick for plugging into your MCP clients, and then you can just type in English, or I presume other languages as well. Write me an application that does this, and this, and it'll generate. It'll do some best practices, write Lambda functions, generate code. You can just write, deploy this to AWS with Sam, and it'll do everything from English as well. So that is super cool. Last bit, I just want to talk about the credits, because Harsha2318 and quite a bunch of people in the Slack channel have asked, I registered for the hackathon. How can I get the credits, please? The credits request form is currently closed. All available credits have been allocated. Thank you for your interest. So unfortunately, because we've been super busy, which we absolutely love, currently the credits request form is currently closed. There aren't additional credits. Now, I will say initially that may be sad face, oh no, but hopefully you can build some pretty impressive applications, particularly serverless ones on AWS, well within the free tier that don't have to cost you anything, or maybe a couple of cents. So it's worth thinking about. We are not setting up big virtual machines that need to run for ages. Of course, if you're using Kendall and all these kind of things, that could have some cost. But certainly if you're using API Gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB, I think even some of the Bedrock stuff's in the free tier, but there's a huge amount of stuff in the free tier. Use that, and you could well do this. Have a awesome web whole thing, even if you use Amplify the front end. All these kind of things using within the free tier.
So real quick, I'm showing what y'all were just talking about. And I'm going to give it permission here. So this is QCLI. I just changed it to use, it's using Claude. So it's actually using the tools. And I told it to find the endpoints, and there you go. So it used the SAM MCP server for this. It also used there's a kind of a global server that we have that helps it understand questions a little better. And so it used both of those. It also has the documents one installed. So I have that global one, the documents one, and the serverless one installed. And it helps, see now it knows I don't have a region. So it's figuring out, okay, I need to do a region. And I can actually go in here in my context and say, always use a profile or a region. So I can keep it from losing those things. So there you go.
Awesome. Eric just plugged in. Quick question. How important is to demonstrate the use of AWS's event-driven architecture compared to traditional REST APIs? This would be a great hackathon idea. If you wanted to do something connected up to a database, or you want to do streaming via Kafka, Kinesis, or SQS, or something that does some cool kind of stuff, that would be absolutely great. Everybody, today's been awesome. We literally got seconds to spare. I appreciate everybody coming on. We've had so many questions and comments, which we love. See us, where's the, if you want to sign up, there's still a place to sign up, s12d.com/lambda. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you same place, same time next week. We're hoping to do some more front-end things, but we appreciate your time. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Gunnar.
Thank you.